What's going on, everyone? Justin Fensterman back with you with another Fantasy Football Weekly Stock Watch Report as we're helping you win rings this fantasy football season in 2020. If you're 0-4, there is still time. I know I sound like a broken record. I say it every week, but there really is still time to come back. Your season isn't over, but it's time to make a move. Whether it's a trade for one of the players that I'm about to mention, whether it's a free agency pickup off of your waiver wire, that is another option. There are always other options. Now's your time to shine. Now's your time to turn your season around, and let us help you at fantasyalarm.com. Your family is always with you. Let's talk about which players are on the rise and which players are falling right now in fantasy football. Let's start with players on the rise. Odell Beckham Jr. Does he have your attention now? Is 38 plus in a PPR good enough for you? Some of you wanted to trade OBJ for peanuts or even drop him after week 1. He's been getting a steady amount of targets, and no, he won't be rushing touchdowns and often at all, but I'm more focused on the 8 targets he got in week 4. He hasn't gotten fewer than 6 targets in a game, and with Nick Chubb out of the mix, it could set him up for more plays. His next 2 matchups won't be the easiest with the Colts and Steelers, but after that, the schedule gets better for him. Be patient. He's getting targeted, and make sure you value him correctly after his strongest outing of the season. Next up from the Texans, Will Fuller, the 5th. View Fuller as a stock that has fluctuated more than most over the last few years. We all know the deal. He gets hurt a lot. But when he's healthy, he's a high-volume producer. Fuller has scored a touchdown in his last 2 games and has a pretty favorable schedule coming up. He's recorded 2 games of 100-plus receiving yards this season. As much as Deshaun Watson spreads the ball around, giving love to David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills, Fuller has proven to be the prioritized target in this offense, and the ceiling is always high when he is on the field. Final stock up, Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys. When Blake Jarwin went down, most assumed that those targets would get eaten up by Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, and as we've seen, Lamb has capitalized while Gallup hasn't, and he's likely heading for a stock down video in the near future on fantasyalarm.com. Schultz has 28 targets on the year. 28 more targets than Gallup. The Cowboys defense hardly exists, and they are going to be throwing a lot this season. They have the Giants, Cardinals, and Washington next, and all signs are pointing up, and Schultz is a trustworthy stream option that could float you for the next few weeks based off his matchups. The targets have been there, and he's scored in 2 of the 4 weeks this season. Let's go over players who are trending down, and we have to start with Kenyan Drake. Why isn't he being used in the passing game? It makes no sense. Chase Edmonds is getting receptions, while Drake has just 5 targets on the year. He had 50 receptions collectively last year between Miami and Arizona, and clearly can operate out of the passing game. This guy has more yards per catch than per carry this season. He's just not getting it done on the ground. Do what the Bengals did with Joe Mixon and use him differently, Cliff Kingsbury. Throw him passes. 5 targets in 4 games is absolutely unacceptable. His next 2 matchups are against the Jets and Dallas, and if he can't produce against those 2 teams, his value could be doomed for the season. He has 1 rushing touchdown. 1. Throw to him a little bit. Help fantasy owners out. Speaking of pathetic, let's go to Miami and talk about Jordan Howard. How can you start this guy? You can't. He's hardly being used. Will he come in and vulture a touchdown here and there? Absolutely. But how do we start someone who could end up averaging 2 to 5 carries a game? Did he score in the first 3 weeks on the ground? Yes, he did. Do I blame you for chasing the touchdown after that for week 4? No, because we had a lot of things moving around for week 4, and injuries as always play an impact. But now the touchdown streak is over, and until he shows any kind of double-digit production effort moving forward, you can't start this guy. The team favors Myles Gaskin and even Ryan Fitzpatrick running more than him. Leave him as a stash, and if you are in a 10-team league with a short bench, you could drop him. As for 12-team leagues with short benches, depends on the ad. If it's a back that's getting more use, you have my blessing. Final player trending down, AJ Green. I'm sure after week 2, you were walking around pounding your chest about the amount of targets that he was getting, and then week 3 and 4 came, and not only did we see him get fewer targets, but for all that thought, he's back! The old AJ Green, one of the most dominant receivers in football. He's not the same guy. He doesn't create separation. When he gets hit, it hurts. He was favoring his shoulder a bit during week 4. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd have been getting targeted more than Greed recently, and if they continue throwing to Mixon a bit more, that's more action off the table for A.J. Green. Zero, that's right, 0 double-digit fantasy efforts thus far. Not doing much else besides catching a few passes. He's getting older, not ideal. That is your weekly stock watch when it comes to fantasy football. Again, make that move, make that trade, and always ride with your family. We've got you covered on fantasyalarm.com. Your family is always with you. Good luck and stay in the know, because that's how you're going to stay one step ahead of the game, and that is going to lead you to winning rings.